Hello students, I am Thirumurugan. I am an expert in anthropology and I have been teaching anthropology for close to around 15 years for UPSC aspirants, and consistently myself and my team have produced toppers. Anthropology, as you all know, it's a very popular subject in UPSC, and every year at least there will be two or three in the top 10 who have opted anthropology as an optional subject. And surprisingly, most of them are engineers who had nothing to do with biology. So, what makes this fascinating subject a popular pick in UPSC? Why anthropology? That's what we are going to discuss today. Now, anthropology is the study of man through time and space. Through time and space. That means we study man in historical perspective and how we got evolved over time, both biologically and culturally, through space at a given point of time. That is a spatial variation. It is the very rich content in anthropology, its scope and the diversity, which actually breaks the monotony in the subject, and it is what makes it very interesting. So let me explain you again. Anthropology, as we all know, is a study of man through time and space. So the subject, we can further classify this into physical or biological anthropology, socio cultural anthropology, archaeological anthropology, linguistic anthropology, and all those knowledge which we have gained through this, how we are going to apply it to make our human society better. That is applied anthropology. So in the subject, it makes us understand one very important aspect. Biologically as well as socio-culturally, we human beings are an evolved product on the earth's surface. Both biologically as well as socio-culturally, we got evolved over time. The culture which we are following, the society in which we live, even that got evolved over time. Even biologically, we got evolved over time. Maybe some 10,000 years ago, we didn't have the same anatomy which we are having now. 1 million years ago, we were altogether in the form of a different species, Australopithecus, Homo erectus. Apart from that, socio-culturally, even now, we human beings have lot of prejudices. To some extent, we all are judgmental over other society. Anthropology gives us a very clear understanding about what is culture. The very simplest definition for culture was given by the cultural ecologist. According to them, culture is nothing but the man's adaptation to the given environment. We all know Buddhism, it preaches compassion not just towards the human beings, but also towards all other organisms on earth. But the Buddhists in Tibet are more non-vegetarian than people in Hyderabad. What makes them to consume meat? It is their culture. Culture is again nothing but the environment in which they live. That makes a culture. We all know Tibet is an intermountain plateau which is located at a very high altitude. And at least for 6 months in a year, the surface will be completely snow covered. And it is not possible for the people here to do agriculture and to live in a vegetarian way. So eating meat is an ecological compulsion for them. So culture is nothing but what the environment dictates, though it provides some possibility. So first let us understand one particular thing. Both biologically and socio-culturally, we human beings are different from other organisms. In what way we are different? Biologically, I will tell you. You might have seen a cow giving birth to a young calf. You might have seen this in the case of a horse, a donkey, etc. So all these newborn babies, hardly it will take half an hour for them to stand up. For a newborn calf, in a matter of 1 hour after its birth, it is capable of running. Maybe for the next 5 or 10 days, it may need some attention from its mother. After that, it is capable of leading a very independent life. Same is the case with the most of the animals. But what about we human beings? At the time of birth, both the mother as well as the newborn baby, they need some medical attention and care. People need to be there around them to take care of them. In fact, for a newborn human baby, even the sutures in the head will not get closed completely. If we keep our hand over their head, we can feel the opening in the middle of the head. So the bones are yet to become permanent. And it takes close to around 2 months for the muscles in the neck to get stabilized. And close to around 1 year for them to stand up. Human brain is a very large brain. For the given volume, we have a very large brain. And this brain matures very, 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 very slowly. It takes a long time for this brain to mature. That's why our infancy gets prolonged. Our infancy gets prolonged. The prolonged infant dependency, at least for 3-4 years, a kid need to be there under their parental care. Now, but in the name of pampering our kids, we are not allowing them to live freely or to think independently even after marriage. Prolonged infant dependency. And as I told you, both the child as well as the mother, they'll be under a helpless condition during the birth. So they are in need of others' help during this time. So this was one very big biological issues which is very much specific to human beings. And at the same time, fight for sex. Fight for sex is common among all the animals. Even human beings fight for sex. Even even in most of our myth, very big battles were fought for women. Ramayana, that entire battle was fought just for one lady, Sita. But I heard about Trojan War. It was just because of one single lady. At least now we do not fight for women. At least nations do not fight for women now. So this fight for sex is common in all the animals, which is there among human beings also. But human beings are capable of making tools and weapons. And if this fight is allowed to continue with these tools and weapons, it will be very lethal and it may put an end to humankind itself. So there is a need in human being to bring in some sort of social control so that we will be in a position to establish some social control. Social control. So that we will be capable of checking the deviation. So we can make some norms and make it sure that people follow the norms. So that's why this is what makes humankind so special. The human beings are capable of making property, accumulating wealth. And once if a person makes a lot of wealth, who is going to inherit that after his death? So we need to have a set of socio-cultural rule and norms so that the inheritance of property becomes orderly and there will be no conflict. No conflict. So this is what makes anthropology so special. And once when you read this subject with passion, it will altogether change the way in which you look at the society. So the first glance of physical anthropology, it gives you altogether a different picture. Oh my God. So in the very front page, right, there are topics like comparative anatomy of man and apes, skeletal changes due to erect posture and its implications. What do you mean by this? It doesn't mean that one need to read the anatomy of human beings and one need to be comfortable with the anatomy of the apes so that he'll be in a position to compare human anatomy with ape anatomy. No. See, we are going to study the anatomy in evolutionary perspective. So hardly there will be some 20, 25, the maximum some 30 anatomical terms about which one need to be comfortable. So that we'll be explaining it to you uh, very well. very elaborately so that I will not have any issues in these anatomical terms. And there are a number of topics like say DNA fingerprinting, recombinant DNA technology, genetic imprinting. So these are science at a very high level. But there is no need to read these at a molecular level. So what you can understand from layman's point of view, let me explain you with an example. Recombinant DNA technology. That means, so we are going to recombine the genetic materials to make a genetically modified organism. Okay, so identify a genetic marker from one organism. Cut the top genetic fragment using genetic scissors. We have enzymes called as restriction endonuclease, which is a genetic scissor. Using that, we can cut the fragment, incorporate that into a plasmid vector, move it to the target organism, and paste it there. We have another enzyme called as ligase, with which you can paste these DNA fragments. So now there is a genetically modified organism. So theoretically, how easy it is to speak. But I will tell you, hardly there are close to around 10 or 20 laboratories in the country where we can do research in this particular topic, recombinant DNA technology. So everything here is going to be theoretical, and theoretically, right, be it DNA fingerprinting, be it gene therapy, be it recombinant DNA technology, we even have forensic anthropology. Theoretically, it is easy for somebody to read even forensic anthropology, how to indulge in personal identification. So be it a dead individual or a live individual. So how we are going to understand whether a dead one is a male or a female, how old it is. Okay, so how we are going to study the DNA fragments and how we are going to establish the identity. Theoretically, it is very, very easy to do, but if there are practicals in anthropology, I will tell you, anthropology is going to be a very tough subject in UPSC. Good, we have only theory. And the next very interesting aspect about the science in anthropology is it is like mathematics. So there are some 6 steps in DNA fingerprinting. Once when you are done with the 6 steps, that's all. There is no need for you to update it from current affairs. There is no need to check how they will not ask you like critically examine or critically analyze the DNA fingerprinting. At the maximum, they can ask you to write about what is DNA fingerprinting and its applications, or maybe its pros and cons at the maximum. So this is one very big advantage in anthropology. So most of the content in physical anthropology are static, and there will be no need for you to update anything from the current affairs. And what is the case with socio cultural anthropology, where we are just going to read most where are most of the cultural or socio-cultural aspects which we'll be discussing in anthropology were dead ones, which existed and which vanished over time. That's why the subject is largely skewed towards the study of primitive people, the primitive tribes, because most of the cultures which we have followed right almost it got evaporated, vanished from our system, and but still in a number of primitive societies we can find this in one form or other. As I don't know how many of you will believe that even just some 30, 40 years back, even in the city of Chennai, even in the city of Madurai, even city of Bengaluru, even in Hyderabad, people used to collect cow dung. They used to make a solution of that, and they used to spread it or sprinkle it in front of their home. But now it is not possible for anybody to do this, because if you do that, right, your neighbor will start shouting at you, "Hey, what the hell you are doing, man? It is so stinky. Don't you want us to live here or not?" Many aspects of the culture are fast vanishing, and we ourselves we are forgetting how we lived some 50 years back, 60 years back, 100 years back. But the study of the primitive people or the primitive tribes gives us a lot of input about how we were some 100 years back, how we were some 1,000 years back. So this is what makes this subject very, very interesting. And about during the course of a discussion, many students expressed some apprehensions about archaeological anthropology. In fact, archaeological anthropology is the most interesting aspect of anthropology, where we will discuss how economically, socio-culturally, biologically, how we evolved over time. So in history and in other subjects, just we discuss the various stages of human evolution. Paleolithic culture, Mesolithic culture, Neolithic, Chalcolithic, copper bronze, copper ore culture, etc. But in anthropology, we will discuss in length how changes in the ecological conditions, changes in the environment, how it paralleled or how that resulted in the socio-economic or cultural change of human beings. That is, socio-cultural transformation of the human society took place along with the ecological transformation. So once when you understand that, we will be in a position to understand what made the human beings to use iron, what made the human beings to use copper. So what made them to use a tool made out of bone, a tool made out of stone, or what forced him to make ceramics, what forced him to make these all were ecological compulsions. And we all know that 10,000 years back we started doing agriculture. Why? Because prior to that, the environment was not conducive for human beings to do agriculture. It all happened just 12,000 years ago that the glaciers started melting and the ice age like conditions started reversing and a warm temperature started gripping the earth. So the permafrost like the permanently frozen subsoil got loosened up and it provided opportunity only 10,000 years ago for human beings to think about agriculture. Fantastic. So in paper 2, we discuss in length about the human society and the traditional Indian social system. One very good thing which our anthropologists made in our syllabus is, though though we'll be discussing the traditional aspects of Indian social system, our syllabus is confined only to the study of Hindu traditional social system. Buddhism, Jainism originated in our country. Christianity is there since few centuries, and Islam, at least from the 8th century. You know that the Mopilas were the first Muslims to come to India. From Africa, they came to Kerala, and they were living there peacefully even much prior to the advent of, or much prior to the Turkish invasion. But good, we are not going to study the traditional social system of Buddhism, Jainism, or Islam. We are just going to focus only on the Hindu traditional social system. And again, in this, there will be no much discussion of philosophy here, except a few philosophical concepts like Purushartha, Reina, rebirth, about which every Hindu born in the country will be having some idea. So good, this is all anthropology is all about. And let's have a great time discussing this subject. Thank you.